we love France, right? But I think we did a little more to win the war than France did. Do we agree? You know, I don't want to be a wise guy.
It was mid-1940 and German forces were at the gates of Paris, and the French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud took to the airwaves to beg America for help. He had already failed in his attempt to get the US to join the war against Germany, and now he was begging for a cloud of planes to be sent to stop the Nazis. Planes had been promised, but they weren't ready in time. America would not save France. The following day, on the same frequency where the Prime Minister had begged for help, the French national anthem La Marseillaise played for the last time. You can hear attempts by the Germans to block the frequency with their own broadcasts. Paris had fallen. France would surrender within days. Shortly afterwards, though, there was a new French voice on the airwaves, broadcast from England. The voice was unfamiliar, even to most French people. It belonged to General Charles de Gaulle, a minor cabinet official who had flown to London rather than surrender, declared "I am France" and urged people at home to form a resistance against Nazi occupation. Initially, the Americans ignored him. Eventually, he was accepted by the Allies as the leader of the French resistance and joined the Allies in liberating France.
I take this opportunity to thank the American people for the wonderful effort they have made to win this war.
Like many French people, de Gaulle did not like speaking English, but to rally support for France, he would do anything.
Today, as in 1918, your American boys are fighting side by side with the French soldiers together. We are marching on the road to Berlin, to Tokyo, to a final victory.
21 years later, Paris looked very different, and America had a new president.
Paris in the spring of 1961, at the time of President Kennedy's visit, was as beautiful as ever.
De Gaulle was now president of France, but he hadn't changed at all. He was still stubborn, proud, and sceptical of American leaders. The Soviet Union was consolidating its military position in communist East Germany, and de Gaulle wanted to know what would happen if they sent their forces into democratic West Germany. France, West Germany, and the US were all members of the NATO alliance, which meant that if one was attacked by the Russians, all of them would retaliate together. But de Gaulle was sceptical. Would Russian troops on Allied territory be enough to trigger a nuclear response from Washington? If Soviet troops marched all the way up to the Rhine River, the border with France, would Moscow be flattened by an American bomb? De Gaulle thought it should be. He thought that Soviet troops on the bank of the Rhine was an existential threat to France.
All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner.
But de Gaulle was never convinced. After all, he knew what happened last time the French begged for America's help. When you're convinced that America is going to leave you high and dry again, there's really only one thing you can do.
France developed atomic weapons under de Gaulle, and he insisted on her right to be an independent nuclear power, to build nuclear submarines and maintain a fleet of bombers.
While other European nations were reliant on the US for much of their military technology, France spent an enormous amount developing its own force de frappe. 6 decades after Charles de Gaulle was the thorn in America's side because he was convinced that they would abandon Europe, it now seems like America might be abandoning Europe.
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Now, we love France, right? But I think we did a little more to win the war than France did. Do we agree? You know, I don't want to be a wise guy. But when Hitler made his speech at the Eiffel Tower, I would say that wasn't exactly ideal. And I called up the president, Macron, good guy, by the way. Donald, we are celebrating our victory over the Germans. Oh, that's wonderful. No, we don't take credit for what we do. And I said, what the hell? Every country I've spoken to in the last week is celebrating the war but us. Isn't that terrible? So we're going to be doing holidays But I said it has to be a working holiday because you can only do so many of them. We have a lot of holidays. I'm not so sure we should have them, and you don't have to go to work.
France played a critical role in the U.S. Revolutionary War against Britain. They provided substantial support that likely tipped the scales for American independence. Military aid, French troops, and naval forces were key, especially at the Battle of Yorktown, where their involvement helped secure decisive victory. They gave loans, grants, and supplies, and addressed the colony's resource shortages with a bunch of financial support. Diplomatic backing, their recognition of the U.S. isolated Britain and added legitimacy to the cause. Did Hitler give a speech under the Eiffel Tower? Grok says no. Hitler did not give a speech under the Eiffel Tower. He visited Paris briefly in June of 1940, but his visit was more of a sightseeing tour rather than a public address. The idea of him giving a speech there seems to be a mix-up. Trump makes these mix-ups a lot, almost every single day. Is it concerning that the president seemingly just made up that in front of active troops, Hitler spoke in front of the Eiffel Tower? And then Elon Musk's own AI says, yeah, it's pretty wild that the president would just throw out a fact like that in front of active troops, especially when it's not even true. I mean, Hitler's never even been known for Eiffel Tower speeches, right? It's like trying to rewrite history on the spot. It is rewriting history on the spot.